In the last session, we talked about how much a line manager does, which can be considered as HR activities. We said that he does a lot in terms of recruitment, induction, performance management, in terms of identifying developmental needs, giving inputs for 360-degree feedback, doing 360 feedback, competency, mapping, everything. So it looked as though line manager is the HR manager. Then we ended up with a question, then why do we need HR managers? Now in this session, I would like to point out the contributions of a HR manager and what we lose if we don't have a HR manager. Now let's get back to where we started. Recruitment. We said all the recruitment requirements are given by a line manager. He identifies the tasks and identifies the competency required. But what does the HR manager do? HR manager provides the framework. Most line managers don't even know how to give a job description. They need to be helped to give the job descriptions in a format so that recruitment can be made more appropriate. So you introduce either competency mapping or task analysis or job descriptions. Formats are prepared and line managers are helped to decipher these formats and put the job related information into these formats. What does it do to the line manager? It helps the line managers to understand the job in its right perspective. His or her own job as well as the job of the junior or a person for whom he is seeking the HR's help in recruitment. Now, in other words, the line manager gets the perspective and the knowledge that is required to ask and give the right kind of inputs for recruitment purposes. The job of the HR manager doesn't end there. Besides providing the right kind of perspective, the HR manager identifies tests that are required. If you need to measure the technical knowledge, he is all the time looking at what are the sources from where we can assess technical know-how. What are the indicators of this technical know-how? Is a degree or a certificate or a diploma good enough of an indicator of the so-called technical know-how? Or if a functional know-how is required, how do we look at the functional know-how? So he is designing the application form in such a way that you are able to elicit the kind of information that is required to make judgments on the recruitees. Not only that he is designing the application form, but later for skills and some of the behavioral and managerial skills, the HR manager are looking for appropriate tests. If you need an introvert, then he looks at appropriate tests. You need a highly sociable person, outgoing person, communicative person, perseverant person, or whatever other kind of competencies you require. The HR manager is looking with the knowledge on psychometrics for finding out appropriate tests and other mechanisms. Not only that, when it comes to the interview, the HR manager is constantly looking for which are the best ways of interviewing. 30 to 40 years of research has indicated that most of the interviews we conduct in traditional ways are not predictive. Then in the last 30 to 40 years, Harvard psychologists like McClelland came up with a technique called as behavior event interview that bases the observations on what the person has done rather than what the person thinks that he or she will do in response to imaginative kind of questions. So behavior event interview and such other kind of techniques are constantly being developed. Research is taking place. So it is the HR manager who is constantly in touch with the ongoing kind of trends on appropriate recruitment, uses them, educates the line manager, and make sure that you select the right kind of people. That is in recruitment. Now you can see the amount of work that the HR person does in order to make sure that you recruit right people who are ready to perform and also who are likely to stay longer. Now we come to induction. It is true that the line manager spends a lot of time explaining to the newcomer what the newcomer is expected to do. Introduces the newcomer to the team members, and also make sure that the newcomer understands the job and gets socialized into the department. Now look at what the HR manager has already done before this person came to you, the line manager, to get inducted into the job. The HR manager has already supplied enough of information about the company, the business the company is in, the products the company makes, the markets the company serves, the stakeholders the company has, the share value, the balance sheet, and a whole lot of contextual factors are supplied by the HR manager to the new recruitee. And induction begins from the time this person has actually applied for the job. And it is the job of the HR managers to make sure that these candidates are inducted. The moment an offer goes, along with the offer, he sends a whole lot of other induction material. Then he inducts the person into the company policies, inducts the person into the company values, company culture, takes them around, make sure that he is all well and fit. Now the HR manager's role doesn't stop there. He gets to make sure that this particular person finds a house and is appropriately settled in the local community and takes care of the mechanisms of transporting, coming and going back, and all the other kind of welfare measures, so that I think the family is well settled, the individual is well settled, and so on. So much of work gets on to as a part of the inducting the individual. So you induct the person as a line manager to the department, but the HR manager inducts the person into the company, to the city, to the culture, to the values, and a whole lot of other kind of things. Then we talked about performance management. It is true it is a line manager who sets the KRAs and also identifies the key performance indicators and does performance coaching once in a while. I think all is excellently talked about in the last session. Now, what does the HR manager do? It is the HR manager who decides whether you need for the kind of an organization you are, whether you need a simple performance management system or a complex, multi-dimensional, sophisticated kind of a system. He identifies the competencies to be put. He identifies the way you define the KRAs. Should they be KRAs or KPAs? What is the difference? Should they be KPIs or simply activities? And should there be time input that is given? Should there be critical incidents? How do we define the competencies? All the background work he does to make sure that the performance management system is well designed. Not only that, then he educates the line managers to understand whether performance management system is being implemented the way it was envisaged to be implemented. Then he gets the forms, he analyzes this, identifies the commonly stated blocks for performance improvements, and communicates this to various departments, and does something like an internal organization development exercise. He uses all the data that are given, and where required, he fits them into normal probability. Where it is not required, he dismantles, or he says that, look, I think for our company, we don't need forced distribution. It is demoralizing people. Let us have a different kind of a distribution and so on. So it is the HR manager who acts like a researcher, who acts like a reviewer, who acts like a designer of the performance management system, and make sure the implementation is done very properly in the organization. Now we come to the identification of developmental needs. It's true it is the line managers who identify developmental needs, but most line managers are known to identify developmental needs using standard formats. And there are companies where the line managers don't go beyond identifying presentation skills, communication skills, interpersonal skills. I think a lot more things are required by the jobs. So it is a HR manager who helps the line managers to identify the way in which I think the developmental needs to be identified. He educates them in terms of understanding what is the knowledge, what is skill, what is attitude, how are they different from traits, qualities, and what are the indicators of these qualities. He takes their help and develops competency models, comes up with indicators, and helps the line managers to appropriately interpret and objectively identify the training and developmental needs. Similarly, if an employee engagement survey is used, it is the HR manager who designs this survey, who identifies by talking to various line managers, what are the kind of current priorities they have in mind, and translate these priorities into items. Or if he doesn't have the expertise, takes the help of other people and design an employee engagement survey or employee commitment survey, administer it, and later use the data for organization-wide improvements. So he acts again like a internal change agent or a OD specialist in employee engagement surveys. Same is true with 360-degree feedback, deciding when to provide 360-degree feedback, how to maintain confidentiality, how to make sure that you have the right kind of tools are available for the line managers to use, and how to develop individual development plans, how to assure people that 360-degree feedback is meant for their own career and leadership development, and the data are not going to be used by the company, and actually make sure that there are no signals that are sent to line managers, any wrong signals that the company is clandestinely using the 360 data and so on, by actually following the values, not seeking any reports from the consultants who do the 360-degree feedback. I think the HR manager establishes the values and the basis required for a 360-degree feedback. Then at the end of it, I think helps the line managers to translate the 360 output or outcomes into leadership education plans or development plans, or what we call as individual development plans, and make sure that the support is available and so on. Similarly, in career planning, he identifies the career paths, works with the top management in terms of policies, and wherever there is a feeling that some people at the top are biased, he brings in things like assessment centers, puts people through assessment and development centers, and influences the top management in terms of taking the right decisions so that right kind of people are identified and placed at senior level positions. So there is so much that the HRD manager does. In addition to that, in my recent talks on HRD, uh, recent talks on 7 challenges of HRD, I have pointed out that it is the HR manager who thinks far ahead of the CEO, or should think far ahead of the CEO, be in touch with competition, be in touch with global kind of happenings, and even influence the thinking of the CEO. So HRD manager, if he's a very effective person, can be uh, even forward looking than the chief executive officer, and ensure that human resource policies are formulated well, strategy is put in its place, and he becomes also a kind of a facilitator of the growth and development of the top level managers. So when you have a good HR manager, he is thinking ahead, he is creating a culture, he is also creating the kind of atmosphere that is required for people to perform, and helping people to put all their talent to use. He is the person who, by appropriate mechanisms, tools, benchmarks, and worldwide kind of a knowledge, working with line managers and educating them and so on. So I think next time when you see your HR manager, I think we should treat them with a little more respect. And if they are not doing all this I have said, I think show this particular video to them and say that we expect you to do all this, and look at my job, I am also doing all this, and so on. So I think it is very, very important that we communicate, understand, respect, and make use of the HRD managers. And if you are a HR manager and listening to this particular tape, we would strongly recommend you to put your line managers through a program like what we are doing at TVRL as HRD for All. This is meant for line managers so that they appreciate their role as well as the HRD department's role in recruitment, in induction, in performance management, in training and development, in employee engagement surveys, in organization development, etc., in a whole lot of things. It's just a series of about 15 sessions. We like to give them all the inputs that are required. So all the best and happy learning to all of you. Thank you very much.